Let's not forget that when we talk of global business, it's not a monolith. I mean, when I'm at the ICC, we're in 170 countries, 70% in the global south. We actually enable $17.5 trillion worth of economic activity every year. I mean, trade financed a $10 trillion market couldn't operate without the ICC. We enable it. So we deal with businesses all sizes, shapes, and in all regions, all with similar interests, which is to do better every day to stay in business. The unifying factor is a question. Hasn't the actual opening up of economies and the rules-based system which enables cross-border trade to flow relatively freely served us well as a global community? And the answer is tariffs, or the answer is other unilateral interventions? I don't think so. I think what the global business community, and I'm sort of channeling it here, is saying, look, as I said, it's been operating relatively well, but it does need reform. Let's be clear about that. And if the injunctions out of Washington serve as a moment to allow the actual impetus which has been building, particularly, I might say, by the ICC, for reform and ensuring the continued relevance of the multilateral trading system, well, this could be a good thing. But that's going to require leadership, and that's not an issue against the United States, but a leadership of the regions and the businesses globally that have benefit and continue to benefit and see increased benefit from a functioning multilateral trading system to stand up and do something about it. And by the way, that's exactly what we'll be doing.
Are your members on the scale of super bullish on a Trump-led world to super bearish? Where do they come out right now as of February 10th?
With respect, Mr. Moderator, that's an incredibly US-focused question. That is not how people in the world look at the world.
Okay, from Washington,
US
that's
or
the only
not.
way we see things.
I know that there's a certain obsession here. Most people are just trying to make a living, and what most people are actually trying to build a better business every day. Most people want less disruptions and more disruptions. And by the way, most people want to build a business on a planet that functions and treat the people fairly. This is not about pro-Trump or anti-Trump. This is actually about how we have a pro-business-based or business-functioning global economy that can support prosperity and achievement for individual businesses and their communities. It's not about and only about the US.
Gerd, you run a UN agency but you also were the German Minister for Economic Development. And I wonder, he has threatened tariffs, and I will get off Trump, by the way, but I do think it's relevant to kind of set the stage, because that's really what the economic conversation is about. He has threatened tariffs against the EU. This week he announced, across-the-board tariffs on steel and aluminum. If you were still in the German cabinet, what would you advise your Chancellor and the EU to do in response?
Hopefully we will have a new chancellor in a few weeks in Germany, but that is not
a few months, unfortunately. It does take a little while to change chancellors.
That's not my part. As Director General of the United Nations Industrial Development Agency, I will send a message here. Globalization and global trade, global business, what is the result? The result is 10 people in the world own as much as 50% around the world, the poorest. 10 people own as much as 4 billion people. Look outside in the hotel. I asked somebody from Bangladesh working there, what is your monthly salary? What do you think, what is the monthly salary? 2,000 or $200. And another example, I looked to your very interesting shoes. I visited some production companies of shoes in Bangladesh. I was there. the production costs for the shoes are about $5. $5. And the price here is about $150 or $250. But people in Bangladesh, the average wages and salary is about $150, $200 monthly. That is globalization, that we must change this business model. We need fair global value change. Not only shoes, textile, everything. And we need a global, fair industrialization. Give everybody a chance for a fair future.
That used to be the case for protectionism, for having a industrial policy. Is that, I mean, this is almost like a Trumpy, if you see it in that light. Is that how the world's going to respond, do you think? If America, you know,
the US
closes up, Europe does things and you have more of a closed global trade system than in the past. And I don't see how that actually would bring people out of poverty.
The US could and should play a fair and very important role in the international trade system. But again, the basis are global fair trade standards all over the world. And then we can talk about fair trade and fair globalization with fair results for everybody. Look, that is the global summit. Where are the poor here? Who represents really the poor governments, the poor people in the world? We cannot only talk about the future of AI. The situation today is 2 billion people in the world do not have access to drinkable water. 1 billion do not have really access to electricity. What is our answer? The answer cannot be like the US policy, the current US policy, stop development aid, stop cooperation between US and the developing country. We must do more. We must more invest, more technology transfer, more innovation transfer from industrialized countries to development countries.
Mr. Nimani, you are also the chairman of the Asian Business Council, and I guess I'm curious, you know, with the recent trends on global trade, threats from the biggest economy on the planet and around, what do you think the response will be in Asia? Because one would think that it's maybe in China's interest as countries turn toward China as a reliable trade partner if the US is not that anymore.
First of all, Asian countries support free trade. I'm so sorry that the US is more or less stepping down from free trade. Amongst all the Asian countries, we enjoy the free trade, as a matter of fact, so we can't deny it. Japan and the other key countries want to keep free trade. And we respect the WTO and the rule of law. But in the meantime, we go for the RCEP, low standards, to enjoy at least the free trade, and second, CPTPP. And we are attracting more members. Now UK joined, perhaps Indonesia, other countries like Thailand, perhaps Korea, I don't know. Korea is in political turmoil now, I don't know what's going to happen. But I think definitely how we can maintain free trade, though it's not big, you know, free trade umbrella like WTO, though we definitely have to keep flourishing the free trade concept. Whatever happens to the United States, whatever they're talking about to us, we definitely have to work on it furthermore going forward.
Well, free trade died when, you know, Obama abandoned the TPP, and I wonder who you think is going to take up the leadership role. Question to all of you, but let me start with you. I mean,
Well, Prime Minister Abe did a great job to attract more, even though President Obama walked away, which was really, you know, disappointing. But Japan need to take a key role to keep the concept of the CPTPP, which is high standards. Definitely high standards is needed. So we're attracting more members, but key concerning factor is enforcement. And in case of US was the party to enforce rule of law, but they stepped out. But we don't have any hope that they are coming back. But we want to keep this momentum of CPTPP going forward. And so detailed discussion is now going on, and more members. So now 15% of GDP should be 25 in the future. So that's our target.
You think China's going to step in, John?
Come on, I mean, if you look at it, and we've done the work on this, the biggest net losers about the collapse of the multilateral trading system are the people you were just talking about. It's actually developing and emerging economies. So if you think about it, it's in their interest to step up to actually start thinking about a proper reform to make it relevant. Clearly, Asia, as Tucker's just said, has been a net winner. I mean, the whole supply chain revolution would not have happened without the effectiveness of the multilateral trading system. And obviously, Europe has interests here as well, as does Latin America. So, you know, there are new leadership. That's what we're trying to motivate. But I don't want to deprive Luigi, I think, of his leadership role here.
Yes, it's Luigi. We do have two Europeans on the panel. Luigi, I want to curious for you. Is Europe seems like it's a bit of trouble these days. There's not much mojo in Europe. When you work with the governments in the Gulf, what does Europe offer? What role can Europe play to check Trump, push more of a free and a fair trade agenda?
First of all, thank you very much. First, thank you for the invitation and thank you for your question. If we look at the last 5 years of Europe, with COVID, Ukraine gas crisis, and now even still tariffs from Trump administration side a few hours ago, it's clear that there are many lessons learned that are in a way changing a little bit the approach of Europe towards the trade and the so-called globalization. Because after COVID, we discovered that we need more friendshoring in order to have the security of the supply chains. After Ukraine, I see we discovered, but we knew already, but we discovered again that the security of our energy was very important and the diversification was crucial. And now even Trump, I think the decision of the President of the United States are another wake-up call for Europe in terms of creating new opportunities of friendshorings with the ones that wants to deal with Europe. And there is still a huge request. For instance, you mentioned this region. Unfortunately, with this region, with the GCC, we are stuck since 35 years for the negotiation of a free trade agreement. But honestly, this is the time of being more transactional, pragmatic, and realistic in order to go regionally or in parallel on other ways in order to achieve the goal. What is the goal? To liberalize the markets and to give more opportunities to our member states of dealing with the region. I would like to say there are homeworks for Europe in terms of competitiveness, internal competitiveness, because we are still attractive. There are many demands, requests of free trade agreements with the European Union, but honestly, if we look at the Mario Draghi's report, I was foreign minister of Mario Draghi for 2 years, this report is clear. Digitalization, balance between decarbonization and the industrial growth. If we look at the point of new partnerships, new governance, there is a Europe that we have to rebuild in order to face this new era. Of course, we will be always supportive about the WTO organization, about the free trade values. We were here in February, last February, and thanks to Abu Dhabi for hosting the WTO conference in order to try to go ahead on this path. But we have to say that the reality now needs more transactional, more competitive approach, because this is a new era. I served as foreign minister even during the Trump first term. It was clear, it's clear how this administration will resonate for the next 4 years, and then we'll see even the years to come, because after this administration probably we don't know which kind of America will be in terms of favoring or not, supporting or not the free trade. But that's it in my opinion. We are going for more bilateral free trade agreements, the Mercosur at regional level. It was even another important achievement. We just closed the negotiation after many decades. But let's look even at more, in a way, easy tools. We have investment agreements, clean trade agreements. We can use clean tech agreements, sorry. We can use even smaller and more agile tools in order to work on that.
Gerd, did you want to,
Yeah, I will tell you another point. There is not a real fair global trade globalization. You mentioned the big crisis, the pandemic, the climate change. Who is most affected? Europe or US or Asian countries? No, African countries, the Caribbean, the LDCs, they are most affected. Peru was the most affected country, African countries. And what was the reaction, for example, in Europe? Okay, Europe stabilized their economy, even the US with not billions, with trillions, subsidies, trillions investments, public money to stabilize the economy there. But African countries are most affected. And what is the situation there? Not a single dollar was invested in these countries. A reduction of development aid, a reduction of cooperation. So that is the reality. With the global south, they are out of business, they are out of thinking, they are out of solidarity by the industrialized world. There's no debt relief, for example. So we have to act, because in 30 years, Africa will double its population, but still 600 million do not have access to electricity. And what do this continent need? They need investment, innovation, and partnership. Partnership, let's create a win-win situation for these people, with Europe, with US, with Asia.
Did I say something different compared to what the gentleman said? No.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, and indeed we are partners with many African countries and even regional organizations from Africa, and we try to do our best.
I'm always concrete. Look, what is the real partnership? The whole world, all industrialized countries, the investment quotas in the sector of renewable energies and green transition is 3% of the global investments is invested in the global south. All other money goes to US, to Europe, to Asian countries, but not to the global south.
Yeah,
and that is my
hold
clear
But hold on
message.
a second. You're actually missing the way in which the financial markets operate. I understand the political point you're making, but the reality is I'm an investor as well. We would invest in the global south,
yes,
and we do, but there's actual real impediments to doing that. For example, it's the way the Financial Stability Board actually applies macroprudential frameworks. That needs to be reformed. That is actually not something that's in the hands of the investors. You should be working at UNIDO with us to try and reform macroprudential. I'll tell you why, because the rule is this: you cannot as a company hold a credit rating higher than the country in which you operate. With sovereign downgrades, through no fault of their own, through climate change, through the trail on from 08-09, from COVID, you've seen a number of sovereign downgrades. It makes these countries impossible to get financing for. So we need to change that, and we're prepared to work to do it. But I'm not going to give a political speech about it. I actually want to do something about it. That's where you need to unite with us to change those things.
Takeshi.
Yeah, so lastly, the things which are hindering the free trade is nowadays the economic security. How to draw a line between good things and bad things? And the US is now drawing lines, but it's hard to manage a free trade under the current economic security in the world. So what to do with that is so important for us to discuss further. But who is the leader to talk about it? And the business in Japan are always talking about what is good and how can we export the things to China, for example, to Vietnam. So it's kind of hard. So maybe WTO should talk about it. And the US is always no way. So how we can cope with the economic security, that's so important for us to talk about.
And the US has been undermining the WTO for over a decade now. Let me get back to a political question, since I spent many years at Politico itself, and start with and stay with you, Takeshi, since you advise Prime Minister Ishiba Donald Trump had a very good relationship with Prime Minister Abe. It seems like he's got a very good relationship with Prime Minister Meloni. So is there an Italian-Japanese alliance? No historical
without
puns
the
intended. But is there something you think that can be done? Because I guess Prime Minister Shiba was just there in the White House 2 days ago.
Well, the meeting was so successful. To be honest, unexpectedly.
It was successful. Okay, yeah.
Right, it was. The two things beforehand we have to understand. Japan has been decreasing trade deficit. It used to be number 5, now number 7, during the absence of President Trump. 2, we increased the jobs of the United States by increasing investment to the United States because the U.S. was very attractive, and it is. 3rd, we increased the defense budget enormously. So 3 things which were the hopes and wishes and the requests from the first administration of President Trump. Then now we committed to invest more to AI, quantum computing, and other things together with the United States. 2.
Did he get any kind of motion on trade? And by the way, we are over time, but this is the last group, and I thought I bought some time at the very beginning. And anyway, moderator's prerogative. So I'm going to keep going just for a couple minutes. I want to sort of continue this point. But
okay,
did he make any breakthrough on trade, did he think?
Well, there was no trade discussion because tariff should be reciprocal. That's what we agreed between the two countries. So what is the meaning of reciprocal? So that's going to be, I think, indicated in the future. I'm a bit afraid U.S. will impose tariffs on steel and some other export because, we are still number 7 surplus. So Japanese corporates should be resilient, which means we have to be more competitive. And the big wake-up call from the Trump administration, which is we got to consolidate the industry. Look at the Toyota, look at the Nissan and the Honda, which went the wrong way, but the industry has to be responsive to this possible change. That's what's happening in Japan.
I'm going to give the last word to you, Luigi. Your side, broadly speaking, is in power in Italy, has an influence in Europe, since there's not many, until the new German chancellor comes into power, there are not many other big European countries with strong governments and stable governments. How would you think that Europe can reclaim more of a leadership role on vis-a-vis Washington, but also globally on this issue? You touched on it before, but I want to maybe get to the politics of it, not the what in abstract it would look like. How would it be done politically? Since you're a politician, I think your insights here would be very valuable.
I already mentioned the competitiveness issue. That is something very important because
beautiful report from Draghi.
No, but now the implementation. But
yeah.
No. This is just for saying that I already mentioned it. But now I think in order to navigate this new age, as I said, transactional and more competitive, it's very important the unity of the member states. And I think that if there would be strong unity of the 27 member states, we will be able to navigate this period that is totally different compared to a few months ago. If we look at the US decisions, in particular the latest ones, then we have to say that in order to exercise a leadership, we need a governance that is able to take decisions in less time. And this is very important in order to integrate more and more our member states and to take decisions as European institutions. This is why I think that even the next decisions in terms of simplifications and reducing the bureaucracy will be very important in order to take some path for the next decades. Then, if we are able to be more attractive economically, more united in terms of political decisions, we can use more leverage in terms of leaderships around the world. But I would like to avoid something that happened in the past that we called, that's in this region someone called teaching approach, this idea that we go around the world exercising not a leadership, but the idea to explain to the people what they have to do. This is something that in the years, in the past here, in particular in this region, created a lot of irritants. I think that we have to work at the global level, on a mutual level with our interlocutors. And let's see the next steps, but I think that we are on the right path. I don't know how much the speed is right speed in order to change our system, but there is a huge awareness in the European institutions, in particular after the European elections last June, and now with the Trump administrations, there is a strong wake-up call to be less, in a way, to implement a program for less bureaucracies, more competitiveness, and hopefully more unity. I hope and I think that Italy will help to create more unity in this direction.
Good. Unity. Thank you to this panel for a spirited conversation. We apparently have an agreement between the business sector and the and the non-government sector on the path forward on development. Thanks to you all for the past hour. This has been terrific.
Thank you very much.